You asked me today to talk about the role of science in the 21st century. And let me tell you, I think we live a moment in the world when the societal role of science is once again bigger than science itself. Science is a critical tool to defend our democracy, and we politicians need your help more than ever before. So an important role for science in the 21st century is to reverse the worrying trend towards a fact-free, post-truth world. Because let me tell you, if we don't act now, if we don't turn the tide, the repercussions could be further reaching than ever we imagined were possible. Vaccines, more than any other example, highlight what I'm talking about here. Vaccines are one of the most important medical breakthroughs of the last 100 years. They have transformed healthcare, increased child survival, saved millions of lives, eradicated smallpox, and even so, public distrust of vaccines is shockingly high. Recently, the Imperial College did a study about vaccines, and it revealed that in one particular prominent country, 41% of the people believed that vaccines are unsafe. Because somehow today we live in this world that we are all connected. We connect to millions of people through Facebook, through Google, but we somehow feel a void in our lives. And I believe deeply as a politician that science can fill that void. The other day I was listening to Mark Zuckerberg delivering his speech at Harvard and reminded us of that story when President John F. Kennedy visited NASA and he saw a janitor cleaning with a broom and he asked, "What are you doing?" And the janitor said, "Mr. President, I'm helping put a man on the moon." And this is the kind of purpose I'm talking about. Something that everyone can get connected behind. About the importance of basic science. Some talked about science driven by technological need, but one of them said something that struck me. For her, the most important thing was having, and I quote her, "a star that guided you forward, regardless of what discipline you were in, a star that inspired a burning passion within you to investigate." That laureate is sitting right there. This idea that Maybrit Moser said about the guiding star, for me is like putting a man on the moon, is what I mean when I say mission-driven science. But not just for one person, for citizens throughout the world. I believe the 21st century should see science identifying what is important for people, things that create purpose for people. It will no longer be a matter of the few to the many, but the many to the many. Things that people get excited about, a star that guides us to the future. Identifying clear missions and using science to get us there. I'm not a scientist, but sometimes I think, when are we going to find a cure for Alzheimer's disease? When are we going to create a full electric commercial plane? When are we going to eradicate food insecurity entirely? When are we going to develop the first HIV vaccine? Yes, these are ambitious ideas from a politician, not a scientist. But I believe they are achievable. So we must use every tool that we have to encourage citizens not to mistrust science. We have to understand why we have to fight back. So the question is for all of you, how do we refocus trust in integrity in science? How do we reconnect people to science again? And how do we create purpose for the young people of this generation? So it's your mission as scientists to help us in this crucial moment, in this task of explaining the process of science. Because if we don't do it, we're going to lose to the populists. We're going to lose to the extremists. We're going to lose to the others that don't believe in science anymore. So, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot stand here and tell you what will happen in the 21st century. I don't know if we'll come to Starmus in a flying car or whether your personal robot is going to be your chauffeur. But I can tell you that whatever is ahead, the only certainty is change. Things will change in the 21st century as they have every century before. Of course, science will always retain its fundamental role of seeking knowledge and establish scientific facts. But this isn't enough, it can't be enough, because trust in science needs to be regained, and because science has the power to connect citizens with a purpose. To do both of these, the role of science needs to adapt. We need to change how scientific evidence is used in policy making, and we need to focus on a mission. As Mark Zuckerberg said in that speech, and I quote, "Every generation has its defining works. More than 300,000 people worked to put that man on the moon, including that janitor. Millions of volunteers immunized children around the world against polio. Millions of more people built the Hoover Dam and other great projects. These projects didn't just provide purpose for the people doing those jobs, they gave a whole country a sense of pride that we could do great things," unquote. So, ladies and gentlemen, science is the best tool we have that can get us behind the purpose. Policy needs science. Democracy needs science. As President Shimon Peres said before dying, we cannot escape poverty without science, because the value of a country is not and will never be measured by square meters of land, but by the number of scientists per square meter. Thank you very much.
Good between the two. So first, I want to say about the post-fact or the whatever world we're living in, that the science outreach and science explication to the general public is extremely critical and extremely valuable. However, there are a few places in the world, the United States being one of them, which there is still a group of people that even if they understand science, when they used to take a lot of respect for science, that if they understand science and the scientists are saying something disagrees with their worldview, they choose to believe that it's a conspiracy, that people are presenting incorrect facts, or they choose to ignore that. And that's true in several places in the world. And there is no way to reach those people directly. You have to do it by educating the broad other side of the house and just hope that eventually people will come around and their worldview will slowly change, or give them lateral input to their worldview.
So in any event, having already set foot on the moon, Dr. Schmidt continues to think about exploring beyond it, and he will tell us his experience and thoughts about it, speaking of Apollo 17 and beyond. Please welcome Dr. Harrison Schmidt.
The Apollo 17 mission began with a visit to Norway. In some sense, my experience as a geologist in Western Norway and Sunnmøre gave me a little additional, shall we say, leg up on my competition to become a scientist astronaut. And this valley, you might say, in Western Norway is not unlike the valley that I explored on the moon. That's a stretch, but it's fun to make those kind of stretches. This picture just symbolizes really what was accomplished by Apollo. In the area of science, behind me on this picture is the South Massif of the Valley of Taurus Littoral, and represents what we learned through the exploration of the moon, principally what we learned about the early history of the Earth, a time when life was forming, replicating life forms were forming on this planet. The astronaut there symbolizes a technology leap that was made in order to accomplish these missions.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
Young Americans, as well as their colleagues from many countries of the world, accomplish this as free young men, mostly, but women as well, and free to think and to move forward ideas that were necessary to accomplish such a challenge. And then, of course, above the flag is the Earth. That, as I indicated, represents a great deal of the knowledge that we gained as a result of our exploration of the moon.
So the question is for all of you, how do we refocus trust in integrity in science? Let me tell you, if we don't act now, if we don't turn the tide, the repercussions could be further reaching than ever we imagined were possible. Vaccines, more than any other example, highlight what I'm talking about here. Vaccines are one of the most important medical breakthroughs of the last 100 years. They You asked me today to talk about the role of science in the 21st century. And let me tell you, I think we live a moment in the world when the societal role of science is once again bigger than science itself. Science is a critical tool to defend our democracy, and we politicians need your help more than ever before. So an important role for science in the 21st century is to reverse the worrying trend towards a fact-free, post-truth world. Because they have transformed healthcare, increased child survival, saved millions of lives, eradicated smallpox, and even so, public distrust of vaccines is shockingly high. Recently, the Imperial College did a study about vaccines, and it revealed that in one particular prominent country, 41% of the